The point I'm trying to get to is here that Northrop borrowed a bunch of money and bought TRW Space Systems, the #1 think tank on your planet.
Who gave you the green light?
I can't answer that. All I can say is that the easiest way for me to say what I'm saying is my association with 3 Nordic people in Douglas on the Apollo program. During World War II, Germany was taking extraterrestrial information and putting in production 12, 14 different extraterrestrial type vehicles. They're manufacturing them using slave labor. Almost 90% of that was taken out of Germany before the war even stopped. It was taken to Antarctica and is still operating there today.
That there are some positive artificial intelligence out there, but that we do have incoming races of beings that are actually artificially intelligent, you know.
Yeah, you can't even see them. Then they put the American flag up, okay? And then they start walking around taking their pictures. And all around the edge of the crater are all these great big things, which are his statement, Armstrong. Sir, you've got to see these. They're massive. They're threatening. They're threatening us.
So, what I want to say again is you're saying everything was planned to 1999, and basically we were stopped at a certain point, and that's a very, you know, crisis point in your book, which is very exciting, but at the same time very disappointing to hear. So it's not surprising because in a sense the general public certainly thinks we never went back to the moon. That's what they had in their minds. Now I don't believe that. So it went black in essence. And this gets into a whole nother area, but I'm going to ask you my question in a minute. So Michael, you were just about to tell him in answer to his question, right?
We were talking about that. I also wanted to discuss, Bill, have you ever got a chance to meet Ben Rich?
No.
You didn't?
No,
okay.
I didn't. I wish I had.
Okay.
Because these beautiful people.
Do you think that Donald Douglas Sr. consulted with Kelly Johnson and secrets were traded? Do you think that's something that...
No question.
No question?
No question,
Can you
yes.
drill down on that a little bit?
Donald Douglas was far more important in this whole thing than people realize. I'm not trying to give him a big deal, but he certainly was. And so he, for instance, knew Northrop. And I want to sort of level out on Northrop, because remember, TRW systems that came on after all of this early program things, TRW came out of the Douglas think tank. That's where it came from. And so TRW then had what constituted, I worked there for a number of years, they had unlimited funds to literally study anything, okay? Any subject you want. So the TRW staff, the president, and many of the top engineers were in the Douglas secret think tank before. And so not only did Douglas talk to TRW, but Douglas talked to Northrop. Douglas talked to Lockheed. These fellows were not exchanging information because they were competition with each other. But at a technical level, they talked together. And they then, like the first package that I flew to Lockheed in the valley there was the first paper that Lockheed had, which formed the think tank. And so collectively, the information was individual for each of the companies that we flew packages to, but there was also coordination between, like Douglas Senior and the top people at Lockheed. And it's not that they were trading information, but they were at the same level diplomatically, and they communicated. And so Ben Rich, what he said before he passed away, I think is extremely important, because he, in one statement, he came up with what the real situation was. And he's leaving that with, okay, it's you guys' next move. It's your next move. This is what he's telling you. It's there. You can leave it, you can back off, or you can participate. I think those words were unreal, truthfully. That's sort of a box of the whole situation. And those guys in the skunk works at Lockheed were right on, okay? Now, I did work for Lockheed 3 different times. One, I worked for Nav Space. I was working for Nav Space in a facility inside of Lockheed. I delivered documents to Lockheed, actually 4 times, and I worked for Lockheed 2 other times. I actually worked as a research wind tunnel model expert. Okay, so and that was the first time I actually worked for Lockheed. But I had delivered packages to Lockheed 10 years earlier, and so my participation with them was then different than my participation with Northrop, because I actually worked for Northrop for 2.5 years. And the point I'm trying to get to is here that Northrop borrowed a bunch of money and bought TRW Space Systems, the #1 think tank on your planet. Holy cats. I mean, this is wild. Northrop borrowed some money. They went to Virginia. They bought the U.S. Navy's shipbuilding company that builds aircraft carriers. The massive #1 facility on the planet that builds aircraft carriers. Now listen to this. What did they do that for? So they could take their engineers, crawl all over aircraft carriers, look at it, and figure out how to make a 790-foot aircraft carrier into a kilometer-long spacecraft carrier. What better tool could you buy? Wow, I think that when we address all of these things that the different people have done, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. And you
Okay, well, what about Boeing?
Okay, Boeing is also involved with building
And Rockwell.
building spacecraft carriers. And Rockwell.
And also what we call, you know, I'm gonna say something here, because I worked on a very short term assignment for, I think it was Boeing, and I was working for the top guy, and they were gonna be designing these, I don't know if it's, you know, I'm not good with this stuff, but, you know, F-35 or whatever kind of plane.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they designed a Starship Enterprise. And they took the whole division, and like in 2 weeks' time or less, and you know that aerospace, they move very slow normally, at least in the public domain. They packed everything up and they shipped it all down to a location somewhere like Redondo Beach. I don't know where it was. Further south, like maybe even further south than Redondo Beach. And they took some of the employees, and I don't know about all, but I mean, it happened so quickly, but I was working for the top guy, so I know that that's what they went to build.
Fabulous. Tied right in. Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. So you're right on it, and and it was exciting because they were excited to be packing up and going to do this exciting new project, and I almost wished I could go with them, but of course that wasn't my line of work. But yeah, so I mean, it's fascinating what goes on. Now, what you're basically describing, though, is a secret space program that went secret kind of like gradually in a certain way, because some of this stuff was out in the public domain, right?
Yes.
And yet the secrecy became more and more dense over the years. And I know a lot of people are puzzled by that. So have you got an evaluation or a critique of how the secrecy got so tight? Is it the infiltration of the reptilians and the fact that you've got Nordics on one side, reptilians on the other, influencing the program?
Well, that's one of the keys, yes. And then you have the Dracos influencing the president of your country. So this...
Okay, so are we talking Eisenhower, Truman, who are talking, all of them?
Yeah, all of them.
Really?
All of them.
Yeah.
Okay? And all
I
with...
thought the president doesn't have any real power. Does he?
He has some power. Much of this was kept secret from that level, okay?
But MJ-12 is behind the scene, orchestrating a lot of this as well. And you're saying this guy Douglas is part of MJ-12 in the early days.
Yeah.
Right. So he's very instrumental.
Yes, and actually for him to talk, two of the Navy admirals and two of the Army Air Force generals to put together the most advanced study group on the planet and put it into a secret tank inside of Douglas Engineering. I mean, yes, it separated several years later, but Douglas put this together himself based on the Los Angeles event.
Right.
I mean, this is staggering.
Was Rand around during that time, or
No.
was that after?
Rand came out of the think tank.
Oh.
Actually, there was this divorce that I talked about in the book.
TRW and Rand? Was it like that?
Well, Rand, because of manufacturing taking over all control of Douglas and removing it from Douglas Sr., okay? They did. And so they didn't want any of this extraterrestrial stuff in their company. They wanted to make airplanes. I don't want them even here. So them finding out about this secret thing blew the whistle. So RAND was formed inside the secret think tank at Douglas. And then there was this big divorce. The divorce took place roughly 8 months before I went to work in 1951, okay? So they divorced, they used this building right in Santa Monica as their headquarters. But then RAND went worldwide. And if you go down to San Diego and you go out to Point Loma so you can get a view of San Diego, you go up to the top there where the view is. As you went out there, on your left side, underground, that's all RAND. On the right side is nav space, underground on both sides. You're there looking at San Diego. Right over here is all of this massive RAND thing, and all the way back on this side, nav space. You don't realize what came out of the Douglas think tank. How many years is this? That's 70 years ago. I mean, this is crazy.
Okay, but let's also talk about NASA a little bit.
Okay.
Because at a certain point, you're coming from Douglas. This is a an aircraft company, and you're bringing changes to Apollo that affect NASA.
Yes.
Okay, and top dogs at NASA are Debus and von Braun, and they're Nazis,
Yes.
and they really were Nazis.
They were. They're SS.
And okay, so it appears from your book even that NASA is maybe the first place that's infiltrated by Nazis and that ideology.
Yes, that's correct. And so Paperclip was not just 10 or 12 German fellows coming here. It was a massive number of a tremendously massive organization that a little bit of it went to Moscow. All the rest went to Antarctica in those big caverns in Antarctica. You got 5%.
Meaning U.S.
U.S., yes.
Okay, but Britain got some.
Yeah, but there's little bits. Okay.
Yeah.
We, von Braun and Debus, were both principals in that organization in Germany. And so you say, well, we got good ones. There were other good ones too that the Russians got. And many of them were still managing construction of extraterrestrial spacecraft carriers, which were being built underground in Germany during World War II. Okay?
You mean when they came to work for us, they were continuing?
No, during World War II, Germany was taking extraterrestrial information and putting in production 12, 14 different extraterrestrial type vehicles. They're manufacturing them using slave labor. Almost 90% of that was taken out of Germany before the war even stopped. It was taken to Antarctica and is still operating there today.
Right. New Berlin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievable.
So is that why John Kerry went down to Antarctica while we had a presidential election being held?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I have whistleblowers who've talked about Antarctica, and I've released information about this.
Now, I'm not a whistleblower, okay? I am simply an individial
You're
who has
sanctioned
been
by the military. That's a whole different ballgame.
Okay. All right.
You're coming from a completely different angle. Most of the people that I deal with have worked in above block top secret, okay? I may even have worked with you or near you, but they have come out of the organization, then they start talking, in some cases violating their security agreements.
Okay, I don't know what that's all about, but I am just trying to put it aside.
I understand, but this is a radical change for the military to be actually bringing one of their own forward in this way. And I wonder if your enthusiasm is it going to be catching? Are there going to be others like you?
This is what we're hoping will take place. That's what I'm hoping will take place, because the public needs to know about this. The country needs to know about it. The planet needs to know about what has taken place. And we've been lied to. I say this over and over. We've all been lied to for a minimum of 6,000 years. Every country, every European country, every Asian country.
Okay, but let's get into, and I apologize to you, but this is so important. Why do we need to know now? Because I get the feeling that you're actually coming forward at a critical time because of something coming.
Okay, you could say that. I could say, in my opinion, I hope that this is going to take place. Okay, I'm hoping that that this will benefit release of this subject. That's my hope.
That's okay, but why are they choosing now? I mean, you were sitting around. You're really 93?
Yes.
So you were sitting around, I assume, I mean, you were a fantastically busy person, building all these things and designing all these things, but at some point you must have sort of retired and been, you know, less busy, yet less utilized by them. And you must have, you know, even during the time you're writing your book, and I know that Bob Wood talked to you back in 2009, and I think there was some kind of interaction with you with some other reporters or somebody back in 2002 or something like that. And this is what was written in the back of your book. And yet you basically had, the lid was on everything you were doing, and even Bob Wood didn't come forward with the interview he'd done with you back in 2009 until 1 year ago, almost 1 year ago to now, when somebody in the organization who's bringing you forward contacted, it appears, Michael Salla.
Okay, Michael Salas, he's done his homework. Okay, now, he's a nice guy too, but through freedom of information, unlike many people, he has taken the time and taken all the hits of not releasing the information, okay? And then eventually getting substantiation for Admiral Riccobata, before he took over Naval Air Station San Diego, okay? He went to Lockheed, he went to Douglas, he went over to Northrop, he goes to North American. What is this all about? And 4 to 6 weeks later, Bill Tompkins takes packages to these people. What is this all about? That's now been verified through freedom of information that Michael Salas has got, and he's got a great deal more information. He's been pulling substantiation for the things we're talking about here, okay? Verifying it. And
okay, but that doesn't explain why it took you that long to come forward. Who gave you the green light at a certain juncture, approximately 1 year ago, to come forward?
well, actually, it's not like what happened 1 year ago. That I don't even know what that answer is, because let's go back to the south part of Oregon and this Navy League Council that I set up in Oregon. And I had my ship models. I put them in the big mall. We could talk about it. There was an article in the paper that some people in downtown Medford, Oregon, were going to have a Navy League Council. And so I get the information in the paper, and then I have people calling us. I stood in the center of the mall 3 weekends. I had a little place there with documentation about the Navy League, and I got 70, 80 people within about 3 months, and we formed this Navy League Council.
Okay, what year was this?
This was 2009, 2007 time period, and I contact the commander, Naval Air Station, Naval Base, Washington, D.C., who's commander of Subgroup 9, the Boomer subs, and I talked to him, and I talked him into coming down to Medford, Oregon, in the big restaurant there, and throwing holy water on this new Navy League Council. And admirals don't do that. Admirals don't do that. Maybe a lieutenant does, or maybe a commander, or a lieutenant commander. Admirals don't do that, okay? Don't ask me how that happened. Somebody threw a little bit of whatever, and this admiral, who has a fantastic background himself on the subject,
So we talking
throws
about
holy water on a Navy League council in the boondocks down
But
in...
are we talking Bobby Ray Inman at this point?
No, we're talking a different guy
Another one.
entirely.
A
Yeah,
different admiral.
yeah.
Can we know his name or not?
I'd rather not put it in now, but
right.
I'm just saying...
So
no,
you came up,
what I need to say to
Yeah.
you, and to help you in your understanding here, again, for whatever reason, I end up with some 70 retired naval top officers in this council, and you can't justify that in a boony town in southern Oregon that all is there is just chopping down logs,
all right.
okay?
Okay.
Now, I can't give you the answer. I can't give you the answer of why just south of Medford there's a mountain. And there's a mountain there where all of these Navy officers, most of these Navy officers are in business, who they have their own airplanes. They fly all over the United States and Canada. They see UFOs coming south, coming from the east, going into the side of this mountain,
This isn't Mount Shasta, is it?
Mount Shasta.
It is, okay.
And so they take their airplanes and they fly collectively, 7, 8, 9 planes, trying to find the door. And they don't find the door. And then while they're doing this, 2 of them come out,
Right.
just next to them, fly right past their airplanes.
Pretty awesome.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what did you say? So what are all these, how,
You know, look, you're in contact, even to this day, with Nordics. You're being influenced, you're being communicated with.
Telepathically. Yes,
Okay? So that's what they did. They basically kind of telepathically said, hey Bill, this'll be a great idea for you. You'll go down, you'll start this association, and if you build it, they will come, right?
and they did.
Yeah.
Okay, and they did, but I can't justify, okay? Why in the world would we have that many top off? One is at a Marine general. We had 7 captains.
Well, I can help a little bit with this because as a psychic, whatever you want to call it, I can say that I did go to Shasta and I was communicated with by the Telos people who had told me it was extremely sad story about how the reptilians had taken over Shasta and that their whole civilization was at risk. So they perhaps were sending out the, signal, and this was in 2010.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so we're pretty close in dates here
Yeah.
as to when your thing happened.
So you were kickstarting the whole operation.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And and that was very moving for me and very shocking. Very shocking. And it was evident also in the terrain. You could actually see there was a frequency fence of some kind that had been put up in that area that was actually killing the wildlife and
Yes.
the pine trees and everything. You could see everything was starting to die. Which,
But I have to say, it's really almost laughable that you have all these Navy officers. They're all in business, which requires them to have an airplane. They fly. They're talking back and forth between their airplanes. One guy's coming east, the other guy's north, and one comes out of the mountain here, another guy comes in on the other side, and then actually when 2 of them are flying together, they come right out and go between the 2 airplanes. I mean, and then you say there's no UFOs, okay? I mean, to me,
Well, I don't say there's
No, I'm being facetious.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
We collectively say there's no
Yes.
such thing as
I
extraterrestrial.
mean, it's, yes, of course, and that's back, back in the ABCs of
Yeah.
this whole subject matter, but amazing stuff, really, it's just amazing, and so that does answer some of my question in that small way,
Okay,
of
yeah.
how this thing germinated to where we are now talking today. But Michael, I know this is jumping back a bit.
That's okay. That's all right. I'm
But-
okay.
Did you get your question answered about the moon?
Yeah, I think so. I want to just kind of get back on that really quickly. Bill, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed at Tranquility Base on July 20th of 1969, were they given foreknowledge of what they were going to find when they got there, or were they just flying blind and they
They
saw?
sort of had foreknowledge. Let me tell you why. Okay, we talk about these. You've heard their comments about, oh my gosh, there are other crafts out here. This is before you get to the moon. They're flying from here to the moon, and so then they describe some of these. Okay, one or two of the very large kilometer or 2 kilometer long spacecraft carriers came in from one side of the Apollo control module. So the Apollo's coming here, this vehicle is coming in like it's going to go exactly into the vehicle, our vehicle. And of course it makes the turn, and you essentially get the feeling you're being given the finger, okay? So you go on, you make your rotation around, you get all set up and to land. And so as you're landing from down behind the crater, these vehicles come up and park. Okay, some of the guys come out and they stand there underneath on the edge of the crater. So we got 2 guys here and another guy still going around the planet up there, which he has to get back into. And they're doing their thing. Well, again, they didn't put the flag up first. They put up a Freemason flag, and then they got this great Freemason plaque, which they put down, and the Freemasons take over the moon, right? Okay, that's what the plaque is for.
With these reptilians watching,
Yeah. And,
And
so
not
now
interfering.
then they put the American flag up, okay? And then they start walking around taking their pictures. And all around the edge of the crater are all these great big things, which
So
are
did Neil
his statement, Armstrong. Sir, you've got to see these. They're massive. They're threatening. They're threatening us. Wow.
Did Neil Armstrong take motion picture film footage of these vehicles?
Yes.
He did.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you think was the talk inside the command module when they redocked with Michael Collins? What do you think Buzz and Neil told Michael Collins? What was that discussion about?
Oh my God,
Yeah.
first of all, okay, really, because this is totally, now, remember, we had sent up vehicles with cameras on them to go around the moon to try to figure out, all of the requirements, not only for the selection of where the landing was going to be, but try to come up with some sort of a feel of what our situation was going to be when we got there, okay? So that's all been going on before. So we have seen and we have photographed structures on the other side of the moon. And next to those structures, a ways away, are foundations of many different buildings that are there. So we've already photographed. We knew that.
okay, well, I'm going to go back even further than that, though, because we know the Nazis had been to the moon, right?
Yeah.
You admitted that, and not only that, but one of my witnesses, Mark Richards, is Captain Mark Richards from the Secret Space Program, from Space Command. He is a Navy, he was a Navy officer on the side of the Navy, and he was, I don't know if you've ever heard of one of the craft that he was famous for flying, which is called Minerva, which is an artificially intelligent craft. Vehicle that very few people can apparently even interact with, let alone drive.
Yeah.
So he's in prison in Northern California because he's, I guess, he's been framed for murder, and he's the enemy of the reptilians who are in office and Dracos. But he said that by the 60s and early 60s, we had a base on the moon, even though we'd been told no, we couldn't.
Okay.
And he said that's because Curtis LeMay wouldn't take no for an answer.
Could be, I don't know.
That sounds a lot.
You don't know about that?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
But that could be possible.
All right.
Okay.
And he read your book because I sent it to him, and he said it lines up with everything he knows.
Okay. I'm sorry he's in prison.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, with your revelations, maybe someone could actually turn some keys somewhere and get him out.
Yeah.
You know, he's almost an elderly man at this point. He's in his late 60s, I think.
Oh, okay.
Not as old as you.
Yeah.
But he was chosen the same way you were, he said, when he was very young.
Well, that's where I was trying to get back to him, that
right.
It's not just one or two people that are selected, okay? There's hundreds and hundreds of these people actually all over the planet. There's Russians too, and there's Chinese. And so, but unfortunately, not making this nice, some are on their white hats, and we like them, but we've got a lot of people with black hats that are selected to implement whatever. And this is a real problem. And you can't cover this part of it up and just say, I don't believe that, okay?
Oh, yeah.
We are stuck with situations, plural, not one, but situations with which we don't have control over. And we are being used, we have been being used, and I hate to say this, but we're just a laboratory for them. Stop and think, that's not your moon, this is not your planet, and they own the planet, and we are their lab. We're their laboratory, and they're associates laboratories, other extraterrestrials coming in, doing their agenda.
Yes.
And
this has been going on for eons, and we know about this, but I have to say, there is a reason for all of this, and I want to get to this idea that the Nordics are coming here. Mark said the same thing to me. Around the same time you're releasing this, he was saying to me on my one-on-one interview with him in prison. I go to interview him in prison. I've done it 5 times now. And he said, the Nordics want the humans to come up to speed militarily and in terms of consciousness, etc., so that they can join the fight against the reptilians and Dracos that are basically plundering the galaxies, taking over planets, etc. And you've said something very similar to that.
yeah, I have to agree with that. I'm just saying that this is our situation, and it's.
And our military is very aware of this, and so what they've been doing is funneling what we call Black Project money, billions, into building this secret space program that's now practically what we call a rogue civilization. It's almost living so far in advance of the way we live in terms of technology and in terms of everything else.
Okay, adding to that, you have Solar Warden. People don't believe that we have Solar Warden, okay?
I believe it, yeah.
Okay, but it is 8 Navy space battle groups with destroyers, cruisers, other vehicles, support vehicles, transports, trucks, all kinds of stuff. They're operating off of Nordic bases, okay? Their families, their children live in Nordic facilities. They go to Nordic restaurants for food. Just like the 6 people in Lockheed, which are here, working, or they have their own facilities in an area in Burbank. Those 6 fellows have wives and children. They're in the public schools there. They go to restaurants and they
nobody
go.
knows their
And
names.
the manager of that 6 group, they are. They have their own mission, which again is talking about this region of the galaxy, this arm, and so they could just as well have been on board the moon facilities, but they're local. And yes, once in a while they help the skunk works, but that's not their job. They're not contracted. And okay, he lives 3,700 comparable years, and so do the children, the wife, okay? The children go to the schools, but every hour they put in class, they're being taught telepathically their own information, because they can finish a 4-year college degree by 9 years old, okay? And they're right here in Burbank. Now, yes, we've got all this other stuff out there too that's being operated in the same manner. And those people are, they're not necessarily here as a contract to help Lockheed, but yes, they do once in a while talk with the skunk works, make side issues, make side suggestions.
Okay, but what about you? Because you're 93 years old. Were you not offered to live 3,000 years, or what's your, relationship with them? Are they just, giving you upgrades so you lasted even this long, or are they gonna allow you to leave the earth and, leave this body, this vehicle, and go back and join them?
Okay, let's talk for a minute about extended life, okay? Now, extended life didn't start here in the United States last week, okay? Extended life was even implemented into the information that the Draco-Reptilian group educated some of the German people. So,
no doubt about it.
yeah. Now, so again, you say, well, what's extended life? Extended life was heavily involved in the secret think tank inside of Douglas. Okay, another subject. But then at TRW, where I worked later on, it was a really big program. I mean, really big program with hundreds of people involved. Okay?
But even before that, the Nazis were reverse aging people.
Yes.
I have a witness about that, who actually said Werner von Braun was one of them.
Okay, I've heard that. I don't know that.
All right.
Dr. Debus, all I got was he shaked his head. So I don't know that when that came up.
Shaked his head no or yes?
No. So maybe he was, I don't know.
Right.
All
Well,
right? But,
why would they tell us?
yeah, but whatever. And I spent a lot of time with that whole week with essentially the #1 guy managing NASA, okay? Von Braun was supposedly the head of everything. Debus was the real head of everything.
Okay.
Okay, back to extended life. As it is sort of addressed today, what you do is you take an aspirin-sized pill, one every month for 4 months, okay? Or it could be an injection. Immediately you start feeling much better, okay? Immediately you start feeling much better. At the end of, or probably way before 4 months, the guys revert back to the latest number is 29. I've heard 23, I've heard all different dates, but say you go back to 29. So you've got everything physically that you had at that age, muscular, everything. And the young ladies go back to 21, okay? You have everything that you had at that point, plus you have a minimum of 400% greater capability of your brain, okay?
Okay, so that, you have said that on other shows. Now I want to know, again, what's their relationship with you? Are you going to take one of those pills one of these days?
I want to sign up for the program.
You do?
Yeah, I want to sign up with a program. I want my wife to sign up for
Okay.
it. I want my son to sign up. I want my daughter and their families to sign up, okay?
But, is there a but in there somewhere, or is that fine, or have you gotten an, okay on that? Or?
I haven't been able to sign up yet, okay? But I'm just saying that's a very real program. It has accomplished both men and women to move partway back, not the full 400% of the mind, but like 350, okay? The plan is 400% maximum, maybe 800% greater use of the brain. Obviously, what the Nordics are already using, okay? Because the Nordic guys and girls go to 3,400 years. Come on, comparable years. So this is, again, part of our problem here, because we're being taught by the reptilians lies. We're being taught incorrect information, even incorrect astronomy.
Yes.
Everything is incorrect.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Okay, but one footnote. The Anunnaki that Zecharia Sitchin talked about, the Anunnaki are these reptilians, are they not, in
Yes.
most cases?
Yeah.
But there are some positive Anunnaki, are they not? Aren't there? In other words, that have started to change their ways, let's say.
Yes. And we got these blue people too. They got a little hair on their legs, but they're nice people. Okay, they're helping. And
They're very tall.
yes.
Yes.
And but
I've been in touch with them as well. In
Cool.
India.
wonderful. They're good people.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But we're just talking about 2s and 3s here. We've got, documented 23 different types of extraterrestrials, most of them being good people, okay? But then we've got these massive capability with facilities of the Draco extraterrestrial side that, they're controlling. And they don't just control this planet, we're just one of their planets that they
Is
control.
Mars under their rule or not? Because I know we have bases on Mars,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
And so, one of the whistleblowers out there says there are wars going on because there are different bases on Mars between those bases.
Okay, and yes, many people, including myself, have watched partial wars with vehicles diving on top of other vehicles from the coast right here, halfway between Long Beach and Catalina Island.
Oh, sure.
4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. 2008, 2009, both. Okay? Watched them both.
One of my witnesses was killed. He was the guy who ran iPod.org. It's a website that was out there, and he had set up a camera on his balcony and filmed wars at night over the skies in
Unbelievable.
LA
Like,
and off the coast.
yeah, it's unbelievable.
And eventually they killed him.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's the Dracos or whoever
Yeah.
that killed him, right?
Yes.
So let me just ask you, do you feel that you're psychic enough to look at someone and know if they're Draco or not, or reptilian and shapeshifted?
I have said that I don't have that ability. I at times pick it up,
Right.
okay? But I don't have that expertise.
Okay.
But I can, for some reason, I know that SOB that was right down the hallway, right here when we came in, could be a problem.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know why he was down the hall. We sort of were on the run to get in here because we wanted to get started. I saw him, okay?
That's great.
And I don't know what that was.
Yeah. No,
He knew you were here.
yes. Oh, come on. We're so
Yeah, no, yeah.
surveilled. It's crazy.
Yeah, no.
Well, I want to talk about AI as well. And I don't know if we're completely done with this reverse aging idea.
Well, I think it's far enough to say that that's real,
Yes.
that within supposedly less than 24 months, that program is going to be available to some people. Now, if you have enough money and if you have enough facilities, maybe you can get on the list first, okay? I don't know how that's going to work.
Right. Well, there's also a spiritual component to all of this
Yeah,
that we haven't really dealt with yet. But I also, I have so many questions, and I know that you probably have a few. So I want to give you some time. So at a certain point, we got to manage our time.
okay.
So one last question in regard to this whole sort of scenario in, Draco, reptilians, etc. Mark Richards talks about the raptors as being a group of reptilians that went off planet after the dinosaurs. That when they said that dinosaurs went extinct, they didn't actually go extinct, but
Yeah,
a certain group of them, from what I understand, went underground and stayed
Yes.
here, and then a certain group actually left the planet, and they're called the raptors. Have you ever heard about the raptors?
I've only heard what you've just said, okay? But
And that they have aligned themselves now with our Navy and Air Force. They're closest to the Air Force, and that they're working with us because their queen was basically told, in essence, that their trajectory of their race would be more positive if they align themselves with humans in a positive way instead of continuing to eat us.
okay, I guess I don't know that. I'm not familiar
But you
enough
do
with
know that reptilians and Draco, the blood sacrifices, the whole Luciferian thing, the kids being killed and eaten. I mean, that humans have been eaten and taken off planet, et cetera, and used for slaves in other colonies, etc.
I hate to say that, but that's far worse than what you've just said.
It's
Okay.
far worse.
Yes, far worse.
Far worse, yeah.
And that the whole blood situation is it's unbelievable, and
Right.
I don't know how we say that to the public. I don't know how.
Well, we have been
Wait a
saying
minute, just a second. On that part of this whole subject, to me, if we get into that, and I know all about it, okay?
All right.
Far more than you know.
Sure.
All right.
I'm sure.
When we get into that, if we release it, 70, 80% of everybody that listens to your program is going to say, you're smoking pot. I don't believe that, and I don't believe anything you people talk about on extraterrestrial. And it's going to kill what disclosure is trying to do. That's my opinion.
But you know the pedophilia is starting to be exposed everywhere. You know that much is coming
Oh,
out.
yeah. But you know the part that I don't want to talk about.
I hear you.
Okay?
Yeah. Saying as much as you said right now is actually great.
Okay?
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you basically are, anyone who's hearing everything else you say is going to have to come to home with this. And if they want to know more, it's out there. It's more and more, it's out there.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to speak for Bob, but Bob Wood, Dr. Wood, who's worked with me on my book, okay?
Yes.
He's a genius. If we were in the conference room and we were talking and there was a big table there, he would have his fist like this and he would slam that table. I want every GD thing exposed. I want it all
Good
out.
for him. That's lovely to hear.
And I have to say, I'm having a hard time disagreeing with him, but
Well, we could do another interview on that subject so that, you know, this one, it goes out, because I know you really want this information out. You want people to start to wake up, and we don't want to turn them off to any...
we don't want, you just said it, we don't want them to be turned off. We don't want them to not believe what's being said, okay?
I know, but
and this,
yeah, it's...
and some, we can get into it partially, but I'm saying, I personally don't want to be involved in doing what Bob wants to do. It's too heavy. I think it's gonna really hurt getting more people to get involved in this subject. Okay? They're gonna say Bill Tompkins is smoking pot. I don't believe one damn word. I don't want to hear about any of this. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it.
I understand. Let me say, because I have interviewed people about these subjects and dealt with this and Mark Richards is very open about it.
Yeah.
Interestingly, but he's in prison, and so they think he's got plausible deniability, says no one's going to believe someone who's in prison. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So that's how they allow that to happen. But I do want to say my philosophy on this, which is humans are not protecting themselves. They're not protected. And so if you don't warn them, you're culpable. The next time somebody gets snatched and eaten or taken away, or their child, and I'm more concerned about the children, obviously, than anything else.
That's
you know.
That's it. That's what.
And so that's my statement. My statement is, I care about the children and I want to protect the children. How can you protect a child? You must tell them. You must tell their parents what's happening, what's really going on this planet. And it's about time we humans are able to protect ourselves. There's a lot of New Agers out there who want nothing but to believe that there's ETs, definitely, but they're all hearts and flowers and good guys.
Right. Yes.
And this is such a dangerous thing to put out there, because again, you get humans that will not be able to protect themselves.
That's
also not understand. Some people get the wrong idea about Camelot, but I'm actually in favor of the military. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually understand that we have a lot of military that are putting their lives on the line.
Yes.
In a daily basis to protect humans that have absolutely no idea that they're in danger.
You're right. Absolutely. I agree.
And that's got to change.
Yeah, it's got to change.
Yeah. So, I realize that people have no idea what a brave man you are.
Oh.
You are, I just wanted the statement made on my interview here that the courage that it takes to actually do what you're doing right now is phenomenal. Really it is. See, I can get away with this because I'm a journalist and I can say anything and people will say, she's crazy, and just not listen. But someone with your stature, with your reputation and your documentation and where you were and where you come from and all of that, this is substantial. I don't think people can ignore you. I don't think they can.
Well, I sure hope they don't, because frankly, we need help.
Yeah.
We need everybody involved in this. It's not. That's not a lie. We need help.
Yes, absolutely. So at this moment, what I want to do is I'm going to get back to AI at a certain point, but I want Michael to ask any questions he's burning questions you have right now.
Okay, that's fine. Bill, let's switch gears here, but we're still on the same topic of naval programs. What was the primary mission of the 1946 naval program known as Operation High Jump, and what really happened?
Very interesting. Essentially, the World War II had ended. We didn't win. It's just sort of ended. And the Navy had been involved with the German facilities in Antarctica and the Draco-Reptilian facilities in caverns in the Antarctica. And this program was well accepted. And then when paperclip took place, this is where many of the German elite technical people left Germany and went to their facilities in Antarctica. Some of them went to Russia, some went to England, and a large number of them, Von Braun and Dr. Debus and their people, came to the United States. So there's an admiral called Admiral Nimitz, and he got with another Navy admiral, and they formed the largest U.S. Navy battle group that we had ever had, with the number of ships and the number of facilities, personnel. There was over 400 airplanes involved. Many of them were enormous flying boats, PB-3s, TBFs, which were all in this battle group that went to our South Pole to clean up the mess down there, okay? There are large tunnels underneath the water all around Antarctica where the Germans, with very, very large truck submarines, had been taking facilities from Germany to Antarctica, the facilities had in Antarctica. So everybody said, we got paperclip here in the United States, but you don't realize that 60–70%, even slave labor personnel, were put in these submarines and taken back to Antarctica through these big tunnels to very large facilities. So yes, there were extraterrestrial UFOs there too, and there were some production German UFOs also. So when we got within what you would call battle range of Antarctica, we had already flown half of our aircraft to the other side of Antarctica with the facilities to enter the mainland from the other side. We were going to come in from essentially the Pacific side. So UFOs came up out of the ocean at both sides. They eliminated every aircraft, including all of the helicopters, flying boats. Every aircraft we had were eliminated in about 20 minutes. We had already started operations, landing type operations. And those ships and all those personnel were sunk. They ended up going to the bottom of the ocean off of the coast. So Admiral Byrd and Admiral Nimitz, with the tail between their legs, took off back to the United States as fast as they could go, okay? And never went back. A little bit like going to the moon and never coming back, okay? So that mission obviously failed to do any damage because they were supposed to go out there, pick up a bunch of prisoners, bring them back, and then blow up all of the facilities with this massive U.S. Navy battle group. And we didn't do that. We came back and we're not going to do that again. I think that basically says what the mission was and what happened, okay? And essentially, you haven't gone back again since, and you probably never will. So you don't have the capability to fight the Draco-Reptilian technical capabilities.
But there are people going there.
Yes.
There are military going there.
Yes.
And they have also a telescope there that's supposed to be specially stationed to look for the incoming of Planet X or Nibiru or whatever.
Well, they have a facility there like you have, your Air Force has at the Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. There's a picture, a drawing that I made in the front of the book where it shows the command center, which is not a command center. What it is, it's a receiving center for information in this part of the galaxy,
Right.
for us. And then you have a separate command center that the Air Force has in that big mountain range. But the one we're talking about is like the Dracos have that the SS still uses, which is in Antarctica, and it's a controlling area of incoming vehicles that are not German or primarily not reptilian Draco type facilities. They could be Nordic, and they don't want the Nordics there. So that telescope facility also has much greater capability than any telescope that we have, and we just had in the last couple of 3 months found out that there are 2 trillion galaxies out there. Wow. So we got better capability, as far as we're concerned. The ones that the Draco-Reptilian have in Antarctica is much bigger than that. Wow.
Okay, but how is it that the humans are they do go down there? Are you saying that the ones that are allowed down there are Draco or Reptilian, or are you saying that they allow them to come and go because that's some kind of treaty or arrangement?
Well, it's just a arrangement between what was left of the SS and the people that are working in Germany on extraterrestrial vehicles. They have them in production.
Still
Today.
today.
And you went down there to clean that up, and you didn't win that battle. So there's still communication with even humans from here to Antarctica, and you have Draco-Reptilian guys running your governments
Right.
of every country on your planet.
Of every government. There you go.
Wow.
That's quite a statement.
I
Does
mean,
that answer your question?
I'm sorry. It's not what we want to hear.
No,
Okay.
not at all. Okay, everyone who watches this is going to want me to ask you about Nibiru, the return of Nibiru, Marduk. You know who Marduk is, and Anu, and all of that. These are the head Anunnaki. do you think that are you able to talk about a return of a planet, or is it a planetoid? Is it a, Dyson sphere?
I'm going to have to say, I'm not familiar enough, other than the title, with that operation. So, frankly, I can't help.
Okay.
That's not my area.
All right.
And I know about it, but I know of it.
Okay, have you been told, let me ask you this, Mark Richards says we're about to start Earth changes in a sort of a more major way. What I notice about Earth changes is a lot of times they're orchestrated and they're created by, by men or Dracos or reptilians, and that they're supposed to start here at, the beginning of 2017. And Camelot was always told I've been doing this for over 10 years, that 2017 was sort of the kickoff date for a lot of so-called Earth changes. So
Okay,
have you heard that?
Let me talk a little bit about a different involvement of that.
All right.
Okay. I had a cousin, is Walter Handon, in our family here, who was 3 years older than me, about the same age as my brother. And after, say, 1933 time period, we were just kids living in Hollywood. Walter's house he was the only child. His dad worked for the railroad and didn't make much money. And so they rented a house in Hollywood, which is what we did. Nobody had any money. And so they didn't have any landscaping in the front or the back of the yard. So we kids would, in the afternoon, after school, we'd get together and dig holes in the dirt in the backyard. And
Now you told this story on Walter Nowasad's interview, right?
Yes.
So that's where you're going with this. So to save some time, can we cut to the chase a little further and ask people to watch Walter's to get more of this? But you can sketch it out, but don't go as in much detail as you did with Walter.
Okay. So my cousin Walter became a geophysicist, astrophysicist, was later Dean of Texas M down in Houston. One of the 5 top astrophysicists, I guess, in the country. And so he continued to come to California, and he would stay with us. We were living in San Fernando Valley, and I was working at TRW, and he was a consultant to TRW. And so TRW had astronomy and every other technical field going, with many different sub-laboratories working on it. And so we were very, very aware of the problems geologically with planet Earth. And this gets into not just Noah's problem, where he had the flood and he took care of it quite well, but there had been 7 floods since Noah's flood. And one of those was really bad. But what takes place here, and it's a little hard to visualize, way back, the planet only had one continent. And as we know, those continents, well, the planet was trying to fix its uneven rotation. So the planet separated into different continents. So what's taking place since then, on every so many years since that took place, two major things take place. Well, three, I'm sorry. One is that every so many years, the planet has literally dozens and dozens of volcanoes all running at the same time from Alaska down the Pacific coast to the Pacific coast of South America.
They're ring of fire, what's called.
And they have these continuous volcanoes all going. Fouls up the atmosphere on the planet to where a lot of people don't make it. A lot of fish don't make it. Now, then separately, we have this situation where we have earthquakes. Some of these are really bad. Then the third thing is the real problem. Today, as we're talking, the Pacific plate is climbing up on top of the American plate, which would be United States, and it's getting ready to push it down into the magma. And the same thing will happen in South America too. It'll climb up over South America and push the Andes and everything on down into the magma. So not too many people live through these kinds of events. So essentially, planet Earth is not a really choice place to live from the geology standpoint. We know that there are hundreds of million galaxies out there. We know that there's millions and millions of stars in our own galaxy, and that there are millions and millions of other planets which are at supposedly the right location out from the star, not too close in, not too far out, rotating, which produce unbelievably 2 and 3 and 4 times the size of Earth, total utilities, unbelievable planets, unbelievable atmosphere, gorgeous places to live, okay? So when the people in the secret think tank inside of Douglas were doing their studies, they came up with a thrust to review the geology of the planet, confirm the situations with the support of the Nordics of moving people off of the planet to other stars, planets that the Nordics are very, very aware of, and live their utopian lives, okay? So when you look on page so-and-so in that book that I wrote, Selected by Extraterrestrial, you're going to see a detailed drawing of a 17-kilometer long space transport, which came out of one of the many designs of extraterrestrial type vehicles for the U.S. Navy, okay? Now you have to ask the question, what's the relationship of the geological part of the planet and the fellows that were studying our problem here, which of course was extraterrestrial, but then it's also geological. Wow. And so these two things were put together a long time ago. And yes, you got nice suggestions by your cousins, the Nordics. Look into this, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, look at it. Take a real good look at where you live, and what is the next date for either one of the three problems to hit us again?
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
What is it?
We're overdue.
We're overdue for that day.
Unquote.
Okay.
Now, my cousin, Walter Handon, was in on everything that I just said. He was the top expert to the most advanced astronomical space think tank on the planet. Okay?
So is he still alive?
No, he passed away quite a few years ago.
Oh.
Real nice guy. He and I brought this stuff back and forth just continually. And for him to be consultant of the company that I'm working for, you know, that was really beautiful for me.
Well, may I ask why, like, can the Nordics help somebody like that before they die, or is that a choice?
I
Or
think,
are you sure he died and didn't just go to another planet?
okay, there again, a lot of people don't believe that they have many lives, okay? Some have more than others.
Oh
okay?
yeah, absolutely, I
But
believe
we
it.
don't just die here and that's it,
Sure.
okay? We've got a whole lot of other stuff we got to do, okay? And so TRW, again, in their programming on that particular subject, actually told John Walder almost the date that he was going to step out,
Oh, okay.
and told him which of 7 different previous lives he was going to relive. New versions of.
Oh,
And I thought that was kind of cool.
right.
Now, I can't prove that. I'm only saying this is what he tells me.
Well, it makes sense.
And I'm saying that I personally, my wife and I, our family believes that, you know, this is only part-time here. You got a real job out there.
Sure.
And so there's got to be that relationship, yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Very
In
good.
fact, you're going to have a lot of fun in another one of yours. I know that.
You do?
Really, you're going to have a ball.
Okay. So what I want to say here is about artificial intelligence. Because when I dealt with Mark, we know the reptilian and the Draco threat and all of that.
Yes.
And other ET races as well, of which there are many that are still, you know, negatively, what I would call negatively based. And maybe as big a threat as they are. The chromaton comes to mind, the dragon moss, and there's also some other very diabolical creatures that even the Draco and the reptilians fear,
Yes,
from what I hear.
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. And what about artificial intelligence? Isn't that a threat? I mean, I was told by Mark that there are some positive artificial intelligence out there, but that we do have incoming races of beings that are actually artificially intelligent, you know.
Yeah, you can't even see them.
There are some invisible ones, yes, he
Yeah,
said that.
you can't even see them. Intelligence.
So you've dealt with this?
Yes,
Yeah?
no question. And maybe not 1 or 2, maybe like thousands.
Oh, really?
Okay, with agendas.
Yes.
And unfortunately, again, both pro and con.
Right.
White hats and black hats.
Yes.
And some of them are essentially supporting Draco-Reptil type of missions,
Sure.
and some of them are helping Nordic and the blue people. Okay, the blue guys are really good people, really.
Yeah.
They're
Yes, I agree with that. So,
you know. Wait a minute. This little dissertation right here
yes.
has been fun for me.
Oh, good.
I'm like having fun
Excellent.
with you hitting on me. With this, you're trying to bang me. You're trying to hit me over the head. And really, you know so much about this subject. It's unreal.
Oh, that's
I just have to say,
well, coming from you, that's what I'm saying.
no, I have to say, you're beautiful. You really know what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Really.
Well, you know who I have to thank.
Okay.
So I'm not going to take all the credit there. But thank you. That's lovely
Yes.
to say. Thank you very much. Okay. What are we on time?
What time is it on there? It's 2 o'clock.
It's 2:00. Okay. So we have kept you for a very long time.
Okay.
I can wrap this up here. I think
Okay.
maybe this is plenty of time for a person of your age, even though
Okay.
you're not always going to be this
Yeah.
age.
Yeah,
Get
right.
that? But so I guess cameras are still rolling, and I guess that we should wrap this up. And I want to say thank you
I
very
love
much.
you. Love you.
Love you, and
Okay.
thank you for your
Yeah.
service to humanity.
Okay.
Okay?
Appreciate it.
And I mean that from the bottom of my heart and the top of my heart. And Michael, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
thank
know
you,
you've
Michael.
been a bit slighted, but your presence
Yeah.
has been very welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll try to do this again sometime
Okay.
if you're willing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you did a
No,
lovely job.
I was having fun. Come on.
It looked like it.